Silent stones hold the secrets of lost worlds. The enigmatic urban layouts of vanished ancient cities are not just piles of rubble. They are complex puzzles that can explain the rise and fall of entire civilizations. By the end of this journey, you will be able to look at any ancient ruin and see the hidden story written in its streets. We will uncover why a city in the desert was built as a perfect mirror of the stars, and how a metropolis in the jungle controlled water with the precision of modern engineering. What do you believe is the most important lesson a lost city can teach us today? A great city, once teeming with life, now lies silent beneath a blanket of earth and vines. This is the powerful image that haunts our collective imagination. Why does the thought of a metropolis like Cahokia, with its immense earthen pyramids, standing completely empty, stir something so deep within us? It is more than simple curiosity. The sudden silence of a once great place forces us to confront a terrifying possibility: the fragility of our own world. As archaeologist Dr. Jane Smith explains, abandoned cities are time capsules that challenge our assumptions of permanence. Our fascination is a complex mix of romantic yearning for lost glory and a sobering lesson in sustainability. We see these places as symbols of both ultimate human achievement and devastating hubris. In stories and films, from the myth of Atlantis to the real ruins of Ankara, they represent the peak of civilization and its precipitous fall. To stand where a bustling community simply vanished is to ask a profound question about our own future. What does it take for a society to leave everything behind? This deep-seated need to understand the end is what drives us to examine their beginnings, to scrutinize the very blueprints they left etched into the earth. The very ground plan of an ancient city is a profound statement. It is a cultural blueprint, a physical map of a society's deepest beliefs, its social hierarchy, and its understanding of the cosmos. We must learn to see these urban layouts not as random arrangements of stone and earth, but as deliberate, meaningful designs. Every main thoroughfare, the placement of a temple, the clustering of homes, all of it speaks a silent language. Take the ancient Indus Valley city of Mohenjo-Daro. Its streets were laid out in a near-perfect grid, with a sophisticated drainage system running beneath them. This was not an accident. This layout points to a highly organized, centralized authority, a society that valued order, cleanliness, and perhaps a form of urban equality. The blueprint itself suggests a culture that had mastered municipal planning on a grand scale. Now contrast that with the great Mesoamerican cities like Teotihuacan. Here, the central axis is not a simple street, but the Avenue of the Dead, a vast processional way leading directly to the massive pyramid of the sun and moon. The entire city was organized around this sacred path, with temples and plazas positioned to reflect a cosmic order, a belief system where the earthly and the divine were intimately connected. By analyzing these zones, the separation of royal precincts from artisan quarters, the scale of public spaces versus private homes, archaeologists can read the story of daily life. They can infer the power of rulers, the role of priests, and the daily rhythms of the common people. The width of a street reveals the flow of processions and trade. The elevation of a temple district proclaims the authority of the gods and their earthly representatives. Every single element was a choice, a stone page in a civilization's autobiography. Decoding this principle is the essential first step to hearing the whispers of the stones. These celestial blueprints were far more than simple stargazing. They were deliberate acts of cosmic mirroring, turning entire cities into vast stone calendars and observatories. This second principle reveals a world where the sky above was not a distant realm, but a direct blueprint for the earth below. Ancient planners employed sacred geometry, using mathematical ratios and perfect shapes believed to hold divine power, to weave the cosmos into their very streets. The city of Teotihuacan offers a stunning example. Its main avenue, the Avenue of the Dead, is not randomly oriented. It aligns with the setting point of the Pleiades star cluster, a group of stars deeply significant in Mesoamerican mythology. Furthermore, the pyramids themselves are positioned to mark the sun's path on critical days like the equinoxes. Across the globe, at Great Zimbabwe, massive stone walls and towers were constructed to track the movements of the sun and moon, integrating celestial cycles into the heart of a powerful kingdom. Why go to such extraordinary lengths? Experts like John Anthony West suggest this was fundamental. For these cultures, there was no separation between the earthly and the divine. The city was a living entity, and its alignment with the heavens was a way to maintain cosmic order, to ensure the continuation of seasons, harvests, and life itself. The very shapes they used held profound meaning. The circle often represented the eternal cycle of life and the cosmos. The square symbolized the ordered, earthly domain. The spiral could signify journey, growth, or spiritual ascent. When you see a city laid out with precise geometric patterns, you are not just looking at an efficient grid, you are witnessing a profound spiritual statement. The solstice sunrise would flood a specific temple with light. A certain star would appear to rest directly atop a pyramid on one night of the year. These were not coincidences. They were orchestrated events, transforming the urban landscape into a stage for divine interaction, a constant reminder that human life was part of a much grander celestial design. While the stars mapped the heavens, the rivers and rains dictated the shape of life on the ground. The third principle that governed ancient city layouts was a matter of pure survival, mastering the flow of water itself. A city's entire form could be an intricate machine for capturing, channeling, and conserving this lifeblood. The Romans are famous for their towering aqueducts, but the ambition of ancient hydraulic engineering stretches far beyond them. Consider the sprawling metropolis of Angkor in Cambodia. Its layout was not defined by grand avenues alone, but by a vast, complex network of canals, reservoirs, and barrays, which were massive artificial lakes. This system did more than just provide drinking water. It allowed the Khmer Empire to master the monsoon cycle, storing water for the dry season to irrigate enormous tracts of farmland that fed a population likely exceeding 1 million people. The city and its agriculture were a single, integrated hydraulic system. But this control of water was often more than mere engineering. It was a sacred duty. In Bali, a system of water temples managed by priests coordinated the flow of irrigation across entire watersheds. The placement and operation of these temples created a socio-religious hierarchy that determined when and how much water each farmer received. This was hydraulic engineering as a spiritual endeavor where practical necessity and cosmic order were one and the same. The failure of these systems often spelled disaster. When climate shifts caused prolonged droughts or when maintenance of canals lapsed, the very foundation of urban life crumbled. A city built around a sophisticated water distribution system could not survive its collapse. Understanding these ancient networks gives us a profound insight into the challenges our ancestors faced. They were battling the same elemental forces we do today: floods, droughts, and the constant need for clean water. Their solutions, carved into the earth and stone, speak of an ingenuity that is both technically brilliant and deeply connected to the world around them. How did a society manage a resource so vital it could mean the difference between a golden age and total collapse? The answer is often written in the ghostly outlines of their reservoirs and canals, a lesson in sustainability written in water and stone. But the most ambitious city plans were not just about connecting with the heavens or controlling water. They were also about pure survival against earthly threats. The need for security carved its demands directly into the urban landscape, with walls, citadels, and strategic placements designed to deter any invader. This fourth principle, defense and fortification, reveals a city's most immediate fears and its ingenious solutions for staying safe. The very location of a city was its first line of defense. A hilltop settlement like Machu Picchu was not chosen just for its breathtaking views, but for the sheer tactical advantage it provided. The Inca architects did not simply build on the mountain. They integrated their structures so seamlessly with the natural cliffs and rock faces that the city itself became part of the fortress, its terraces acting as defensive ramparts and its narrow entrances easily blocked. Across the world, the massive walls of Constantinople presented a completely different, yet equally brilliant solution. These were not simple barriers, but a layered masterpiece of military architecture. A deep moat towering outer walls, and then an even higher inner wall created a deadly killing ground for any army that dared to approach. Bastions, which are projecting stone towers, allowed defenders to fire along the length of the wall, eliminating blind spots. The city's legendary gates were complex choke points designed to break the momentum of a charge. Military historians point out that every one of these features was a direct response to the siege weapons and tactics of the time, a constant arms race between those building walls and those trying to break them down. Even within the city walls, the layout could be a weapon. Labyrinthine streets in many older towns were not a result of poor planning. They were intentional, designed to confuse and slow down enemy soldiers who breached the outer defenses, turning the city itself into a maze where every corner could hide an ambush. The choice between a single, massive citadel and a network of smaller strongholds speaks volumes about a society's power structure and its relationship with neighboring powers. A city's defensive blueprint is a stark map of its perceived vulnerabilities, a permanent record of who it feared and how it planned to endure. From the earliest fortified villages to the colossal walls of great capitals, the drive for safety was a fundamental force, shaping the very stone and street from the ground up. A city's blueprint often carved its social order directly into the earth. This fifth principle reveals how urban layouts were meticulously designed to separate classes, professions, and power, creating a living map of a society's hierarchy. Walk through any major ancient city, and you would have known your place simply by the neighborhood you entered. In ancient Rome, the spatial division was stark and intentional. The magnificent villas of the emperors and aristocrats crowned the Palatine Hill, looking down both literally and figuratively upon the sprawling, overcrowded insulae below. These were the apartment blocks where the vast majority of the population lived, often in cramped and precarious conditions. The city's design made the social pyramid visible for all to see, a constant physical reminder of one's status. This zoning was not merely about prestige, it was about function and control. In the bustling medieval Islamic city, the layout facilitated a different kind of order. The souk, or market quarter, was almost always located near the main city gates. This was a brilliantly practical decision, minimizing the distance goods had to travel from caravans to market stalls, keeping the bustle and noise of commerce away from the quiet, inward-focused residential districts and the sacred precincts of the main mosque. Artisans of the same trade, like potters or metalworkers, were typically clustered together in their own specialized streets. This created efficient hubs for production and trade, but it also made it easier for authorities to monitor and tax specific industries. By meticulously mapping these zones, the locations of grand houses versus tiny workshops, the proximity of homes to clean water sources or noisy industrial areas, archaeologists can read the economic heartbeat of a lost city. They can trace the routes a farmer took to bring his goods to market, or understand the daily journey of a laborer moving from a modest dwelling on the city's periphery to a monumental construction project at its center. The very width of the streets in different districts tells a story, broad processional ways for elites and state rituals contrasting with narrow, winding alleys in commoner neighborhoods. This socio-economic zoning was the framework upon which the complex fabric of daily life was woven, a silent enforcement of social rules that dictated where you could live, what work you could do, and who you were in the world. The rigid geometry of Mohenjo-Daro feels almost modern to our eyes. On the banks of the Indus River, over 4,000 years ago, a city rose with a vision of order so complete it remains startling. Its streets did not grow organically from wandering footpaths. They were imposed upon the landscape in a near-perfect grid of wide, straight thoroughfares intersecting at precise right angles. This was not the norm in the ancient world. While other great centers were building monumental pyramids and temples, Mohenjo-Daro was investing in a different kind of grandeur, the grandeur of infrastructure. This commitment to uniformity is visible right down to the bricks themselves. They were standardized, baked to consistent dimensions, a simple innovation that speaks volumes about a centralized authority capable of enforcing such specifications. But the city's true genius lay beneath the streets. A sophisticated network of covered drains channeled wastewater away from homes and public spaces, connecting to larger sewers that ran the length of the main avenues. This was the world's first known urban sanitation system on such a scale, a testament to a society that understood the vital link between public health and civic order. At the heart of the city stood the Great Bath, a large, watertight pool accessed by staircases, likely used for ritual purification. This structure hints that the concept of cleanliness was not merely practical, it was woven into the spiritual and social fabric of life. Archaeologists like Jonathan Mark Kenoyer see this entire layout as physical evidence of a powerful, centralized authority, a government or priesthood that could plan, fund, and enforce this remarkable urban vision. Why did they choose such a rigid collective plan? It suggests a culture where community welfare and social harmony were valued above individual architectural expression. The grid was a tool for managing a large, dense population, ensuring efficient movement, sanitation, and perhaps even a form of social equality. The homes, while varying in size, largely shared the same access to the city's amenities. There were no colossal royal palaces towering over slums, at least none that have been found. Instead, we find a citadel complex with administrative and religious structures, but the city's wealth seems to have been invested in its shared infrastructure, in the well-being of its citizens as a whole. The grid of Mohenjo-Daro challenges our deepest assumptions about early urbanism. It presents a model of city life that rivals modern planning, a high watermark for organized, communal living that would not be seen again for millennia. Yet the rigid grid of Mohenjo-Daro presents only one vision of order. Far across the world, another city pursued a different kind of perfection, one written not in right angles but in the language of the stars. The silence of Teotihuacan is profound. You walk down the Avenue of the Dead, a causeway so wide and long it seems to pull you toward the massive pyramids ahead. The scale is overwhelming, a testament to a power that could move mountains of stone, but the true genius of this place is invisible at first glance. The entire city is a precise astronomical instrument. The Pyramid of the Sun is not randomly placed. Its western facade aligns perfectly with the setting sun on the day it passes directly overhead, a day that marked the beginning of the rainy season for the ancient Teotihuacanos. This was not just a calendar, it was a promise of life-giving water. The larger urban plan is even more revealing. The city's main axis is skewed exactly 15.5 degrees east of true north. For decades, researchers debated this peculiar orientation. Was it aligned with the sacred Cerro Gordo mountain that looms to the north, or did it point to the rising of a specific star like the Pleiades on a critical day of the year? The answer is likely both, a masterful fusion of terrestrial and celestial geography. This was a city built as a terrestrial replica of the cosmos, a place where the gods were created and where they could be communed with. The architecture reinforces this sacred purpose. The Temple of the Feathered Serpent, adorned with dramatic stone carvings of the serpent god, sits within a vast walled compound. It was the stage for elaborate rituals, its placement and iconography all part of a grand cosmological narrative. Perhaps the most telling clue to Teotihuacan's soul is not what was built but what is missing. Archaeologists have found no grand royal palaces, no colossal tombs filled with the regalia of a single all-powerful king. This suggests a society governed differently, perhaps by a council of elders or a class of priest astronomers who wielded power through their command of celestial knowledge and ritual. In this city, urban planning was the highest form of religious devotion. Every structure, every street, was a verse in a silent hymn to the cosmos, designed to maintain the delicate balance between the human world and the realm of the gods. The stones of Teotihuacan do not whisper of a pharaoh's ego, but of a collective effort to build heaven on earth. This sprawling palace complex on Crete feels less like a building and more like a living organism. Knossos is a labyrinth in every sense of the word, a seemingly chaotic cascade of over 1,000 interconnecting rooms, corridors, light wells, and courtyards spread across multiple levels. Its very name is synonymous with the myth of the Minotaur, the fearsome half-man, half-bull creature said to dwell in a maze built by the legendary King Minos. Walking through its ruins, you can understand how the legend was born. The layout is profoundly disorienting, with corridors that twist and turn, staircases that lead to unexpected landings, and doors that open onto blank walls. This was no rigid grid imposed upon the land. It was an architecture that grew, adapted, and embraced complexity. But was this maze intentional? Some archaeologists argue the confusing plan was a deliberate design to awe and disorient visitors, reinforcing the power of the ruling elite who alone knew the secrets of its passages. Others see it as the natural, organic result of centuries of continuous rebuilding and expansion, with new wings and levels added as needed, creating a complex that evolved with the society it housed. This very debate lies at the heart of the Minoan mystery. Unlike the heavily fortified cities of the mainland, Knossos presents a startling fact: it has no defensive walls. This absence speaks volumes. It suggests a society so confident in its mastery of the sea, so secure in its naval power, that it felt no need to build massive ramparts against invasion. Their security came from the waves, not from stone. This was a civilization oriented outward, a trading empire whose wealth flowed from across the Mediterranean. The architecture itself reveals an advanced and joyful engineering. Multi-story buildings were supported by elegant, downward tapering columns, and sophisticated light wells channeled sunlight deep into the palace's heart, creating a bright and airy environment unlike the dark, fortified halls of later medieval castles. At the center of it all was the great central court, a vast rectangular plaza that was likely the vibrant hub of the entire complex. Here, religious ceremonies, athletic games, and bustling communal gatherings would have taken place, all under the watchful eyes of priests and rulers. The walls around this court and throughout the palace were alive with art. Vibrant frescoes depict scenes of leaping acrobats vaulting over charging bulls, elegant processions of offering bearers, and intricate designs of dolphins and octopuses. This art does not glorify conquest or warrior kings. Instead, it shows a people deeply in tune with the natural world, celebrating movement, ritual, and the sea. Knossos challenges our very definition of a planned city. It was not a geometric statement of power like Teotihuacan, nor a manifesto of social order like Mohenjo-Daro. Its form emerged from centuries of cultural practice, from a unique blend of maritime confidence, ritual complexity, and an organic approach to space. It shows us that a city's soul can be written not in straight lines, but in the beautiful, bewildering curves of a labyrinth. Perched on a knife-edge ridge high in the Andes, Machu Picchu feels less like a city built upon a mountain and more like a city that grew from it. This is the ultimate expression of a civilization in dialogue with an extreme environment, a masterpiece of Inca engineering where the urban layout was dictated by the sheer, unforgiving terrain. The city is clearly zoned into distinct sectors for agriculture, urban living, and religious ceremony, but these are not laid out on a flat plain. They cascade down the mountainside, connected by a network of stone stairways and over 100 agricultural terraces. These terraces were far more than just farms clinging to a cliff. They were a revolutionary anti-erosion system, their stone-retaining walls and deep gravel layers preventing the entire mountainside from washing away during torrential rains, while also creating microclimates for growing crops. Every element of the design demonstrates a profound understanding of the landscape, not a fight against it. The Incas saw the surrounding peaks not as obstacles, but as sacred deities known as apus. The entire layout of Machu Picchu is oriented to honor these mountain spirits, with temples and key structures carefully positioned to frame specific sacred peaks on the horizon. At the heart of the religious sector sits the Teotihuacan stone, a beautifully carved granite pillar often called a hitching post for the sun. This was no mere sculpture. It functioned as a precise astronomical instrument, its angles calibrated to track the sun's movement throughout the year, marking the solstices and equinoxes with stunning accuracy. The engineering here is as spiritual as it is practical. The city's famous dry stone walls, built with blocks so perfectly cut that not even a razor blade can fit between them, were designed to be earthquake-resistant. During a tremor, the stones in these walls would dance and then settle back into place, a genius solution for a region prone to seismic shifts. This same ingenuity is visible in the water supply. A natural spring on the mountainside was channeled into a sophisticated system of stone fountains and canals that provided fresh water to the entire city, with each fountain strategically placed for both access and ceremonial purpose. Why build a city in such an inaccessible place? Machu Picchu was likely a royal estate and a spiritual sanctuary, a place apart from the mundane world. Its abandonment remains one of history's great puzzles, possibly linked to the Spanish conquest or internal upheaval. Yet its silent, empty terraces and perfectly aligned temples tell a powerful story of a people who did not conquer their environment, but instead learned to listen to it, to build in harmony with the very bones of the earth. The circular city of Baghdad was an idea made stone, a perfect geometric testament to imperial power and cosmic order. Founded in the 8th century as Madinat al-Salam, the city of peace, its very shape was a revolutionary statement. Enclosed by immense concentric walls, the city was a perfect circle, with 4 majestic gates aligned with the cardinal directions and grand avenues radiating from the center like spokes on a wheel. At the very heart of this geometric masterpiece stood the great mosque and the colossal golden domed palace of the Caliph. This was not a random placement. It was a profound declaration that the ruler was the absolute center of the empire, the spiritual and political axis around which the entire world turned. The city itself was a physical map of this ideology, a symbolic universe in miniature. The 4 main gates did more than just allow entry and exit. The Khurasan gate faced northeast, the Kufa gate looked southwest, the Basra gate opened to the southeast, and the Damascus gate pointed northwest. Each one served as a direct conceptual link to the distant provinces of the vast Islamic empire, a constant reminder that all roads, both literal and metaphorical, led back to the authority of the Caliph in the center. This circular form was also brilliantly pragmatic. The concentric rings of walls created layered defensive perimeters, forcing any potential attacker to breach one line of defense only to be confronted by another. The radial avenues allowed troops to move quickly from the center to any point on the perimeter, while also creating clear, efficient routes for trade caravans and pilgrims entering the city. Historians note that the city's interior was meticulously zoned, with specific sectors allocated to different crafts and communities, from metalworkers and weavers to scholars and merchants. This careful organization turned the city into a smoothly functioning administrative machine, where commerce, faith, and governance could all operate in a harmonious, controlled environment. The round city was more than just a fortress or a capital. It was designed to be the perfect city, a utopian vision of peace and order made manifest on Earth. Although almost nothing of this original layout remains visible in modern Baghdad, its revolutionary blueprint echoes through history. It stands as one of the most ambitious examples of how urban design can be wielded not just for defense or efficiency, but as a powerful tool to project an idea, to build an entire worldview from the ground up. How do we translate these silent stone blueprints into a story we can understand? The science of archaeology has evolved far beyond the simple shovel and brush. Today, a powerful digital toolkit allows us to peer through dense jungle canopies and deep into the earth itself, revealing entire cities we never knew existed. One of the most revolutionary technologies is LIDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. Imagine an aircraft flying over a vast, impenetrable rainforest, firing millions of laser pulses down to the ground. These pulses bounce back, and by measuring their return time, a computer can strip away every single leaf and vine, creating a stunningly precise 3-dimensional map of the ground surface below. This is how entire Maya cities, swallowed by the Guatemalan jungle for over 1,000 years, have been rediscovered, their plazas and pyramids revealed in perfect detail without a single tree being cut. But what about structures buried under open fields or desert sands? For that, archaeologists use ground-penetrating radar. This device sends radio waves into the earth, which bounce back when they hit something solid, like a buried wall or a stone foundation. It is like giving the earth an X-ray, mapping the ghostly footprints of buildings, roads, and canals that lie just beneath our feet, all without any destructive digging. These digital maps are then fed into Geographic Information Systems, or GIS. This powerful software allows researchers to analyze every aspect of a city's layout. They can calculate walking distances from a residential quarter to a main temple, model how water would have flowed through ancient canals, and even simulate the views ancient people had of sacred mountains from specific locations. Yet for all this technological wonder, traditional methods remain the bedrock of interpretation. Careful excavation and stratigraphy, the study of soil layers, provide the essential timeline, helping to determine which wall was built first or when a canal was filled in. The artifacts found in those layers, a broken pot, a lost tool, a charred seed, tell us about the people who lived and worked there. It is the combination of these methods that truly brings a city back to life. By merging LIDAR data, ground-penetrating radar surveys, and artifact analysis, experts can create breathtakingly accurate digital reconstructions. We can now take a virtual walk through a bustling Mesopotamian market or stand in the main plaza of a lost Andean city at the peak of its power, watching as digital sunlight washes over freshly rendered stone. This multidisciplinary approach is the true magic of modern archaeology, a fusion of cutting-edge science and timeless detective work that is finally allowing the stones to speak. These silent stone blueprints were often written in a visual language. Beyond the lines of streets and the mass of walls, ancient cities communicated through a powerful vocabulary of symbols embedded in their very fabric. This iconography, the recurring motifs in sculpture, carvings, and spatial arrangements, was a direct line to a civilization's deepest beliefs. Think of it as a code where every repeated image was a word, and their placement in the city formed a sentence about power, faith, and identity. In the great Mesoamerican city of Teotihuacan, the feathered serpent was not just a decorative theme. Carved repeatedly on the temple now named for it, this creature symbolized the union of earth and sky, a divine force central to the city's cosmology. Its image was a constant public reminder of the spiritual forces that governed life. Similarly, the towering obelisks of ancient Egypt were not mere monuments. They were understood as petrified rays of the sun god Ra, their gilded tips catching the first and last light of day, physically connecting the pharaoh's realm to the divine. The strategic placement of these symbols was just as important as the symbols themselves. A statue of a protective deity at a city gate was not random art. It was a spiritual sentry, a declaration that the community was under divine guardianship. An avenue carefully aligned to frame a distant, sacred mountain on the horizon turned a simple journey into a pilgrimage, reinforcing a sacred geography with every step a citizen took. This language of symbols was also the language of power. The Lion Gate of Mycenae in Greece is a stark example. Anyone approaching that formidable citadel was met by the overwhelming sight of two massive lionesses carved in stone, standing guard over the entrance. This was not a subtle message. It was a clear statement of the ruler's strength, a warning to enemies, and a psychological reinforcement of the authority held within those walls. But this symbolic language was not only about intimidation. It was also about building community. Shared symbols like a particular animal totem or a geometric pattern repeated on public buildings and common pottery created a visual bond. They fostered a sense of shared identity, telling everyone who saw them, "You are part of this group, you belong to this place." Decoding this rich symbolic language is how we move beyond understanding what a city was and begin to comprehend what it dreamed of becoming. It reveals the ideals a society carved in stone for all to see, a permanent record of their highest aspirations. The very ground beneath a city's foundations held a power to shape its destiny. Geography and environment were not just a backdrop, they were active, demanding partners in the creation of every urban plan. A city did not simply occupy a space, it had to answer to the land, to the flow of water, and to the harsh realities of the climate. This relationship between the built environment and the natural world was a constant negotiation, a dance of adaptation that left its mark on every street and structure. Consider the desert city of Petra, carved directly into the rose-red cliffs of a narrow canyon in Jordan. its very form was a masterpiece of environmental strategy. Those towering canyon walls were not merely a spectacular facade. They were a natural fortress, a ready-made defensive system that required minimal additional fortification. More importantly, the Nabateans who built Petra transformed their arid environment into a life-giving landscape. They engineered a complex system of dams, cisterns, and channels to capture every precious drop of seasonal rainwater, channeling it through the canyon to sustain a thriving metropolis in the heart of the desert. Their city's layout was a direct response to the scarcity of water, a lesson in conservation written in stone. Now, shift your perspective to the riverine world of ancient Babylon. Here, the lifeblood was the mighty Euphrates River. The city's entire existence was woven around this aquatic highway. Canals branched off from the river like arteries, providing water for the famous hanging gardens, feeding irrigation networks for vast fields of grain, and serving as the primary routes for trade and transport. The river did not just support the city, it dictated its rhythm and its wealth. The very materials used to build these cities were a direct gift or a limitation of the local environment. In Mesopotamia, where stone was scarce, the primary building block was mud brick, a mixture of earth, water, and straw baked in the sun. This created cities that rose and fell with the centuries, their structures melting back into the earth from which they came. In forested regions, great cities were built of timber, while in mountainous areas, builders used the abundant local stone, creating the enduring granite marvels of the Inca or the limestone monuments of Egypt. The durability of a city was often a direct reflection of the resources at hand. Sometimes, the environmental constraints were so severe they sparked breathtaking innovation. The ancestral pueblones of the American Southwest built their communities directly into the sheer cliffs of places like Mesa Verde. These were not random dwellings. The south-facing cliff alcoves provided passive solar heating in the winter and cool shade in the summer, while their lofty, inaccessible locations offered unparalleled protection. In flood-prone regions, from the wetlands of Southeast Asia to the river deltas of Mesopotamia, cities were often constructed on massive raised earthen platforms or intricate networks of stilts. This was urban planning as a dialogue with nature, an acknowledgement of elemental forces and a clever, resilient solution to survive them. When we understand this intimate relationship, we see these lost cities not as triumphs over nature, but as collaborations with it. Their successes were a testament to human ingenuity in the face of environmental challenge. Their failures, often when the climate shifted or their careful management of resources broke down, stand as stark reminders that even the greatest urban plans must ultimately bow to the world around them. The grand colonnaded street of Palmyra was not just a beautiful promenade, it was a statement of economic power carved in stone, stretching over a kilometer through the heart of the Syrian desert. This magnificent thoroughfare served a single, vital purpose: to guide the wealth of the world directly into the city's core. Palmyra's entire layout was a machine for trade. Caravans laden with silk, spices, and incense would arrive after weeks crossing the desert, and this grand avenue funneled them straight to the central agora, the bustling market where goods were taxed, traded, and stored. The city's prosperity depended on this smooth, controlled flow of commerce, and its urban plan ensured that every merchant and every camel passed through the heart of its economic engine. This relationship between trade and city design is a pattern repeated across the ancient world. In Rome's port city of Ostia, the layout was a masterclass in logistics. Wide streets led from the docks directly into massive, multi-story warehouses called horia. These buildings were the ancient equivalent of container terminals, with raised floors to keep goods dry and large courtyards for loading and unloading. The entire district was a dedicated sector for storage and redistribution, a clear sign that the city's primary function was to feed the insatiable appetite of the capital. The very fabric of a city could be segmented by economic activity. In ancient Athens, the Kerameikos was not just a neighborhood, it was the potter's quarter, a dense cluster of workshops, kilns, and showrooms located near the city gates for easy access to clay sources and export routes. This zoning was efficient, creating hubs of specialized skill and production. You would find similar districts for metalworkers, weavers, and stonemasons in cities from Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley. By mapping these zones, archaeologists can trace the economic heartbeat of a lost civilization. The wide, straight streets of a city like Palmyra were necessary to accommodate long lines of camels. The narrow, winding alleys of a medieval market town were designed to maximize shop frontage and create a bustling, crowded atmosphere. The presence of large, open plazas points to spaces for public markets, while the discovery of standardized weights and measures near a city gate hints at official oversight of trade. Every one of these urban features reveals a city deeply enmeshed in a web of exchange that often stretched for thousands of miles. The silver coins of Athens have been found in Egypt, Indian spices were sold on the streets of Rome, and Chinese silk dressed the elites of Palmyra. The layout of an ancient city is therefore a fossilized map of these global interactions, a permanent record of how the relentless pursuit of commerce built, shaped, and sustained the urban world. Rising above the bustling streets and residential quarters, a city's true soul often resided in its ceremonial heart. These were not just temples or plazas, but the epicenters of cosmic order, the stage upon which the drama of human and divine interaction played out. In Mesopotamia, the entire city pivoted around the towering ziggurat, a massive stepped pyramid that served as a literal staircase to the gods. Its overwhelming height and central placement made it the city's focal point, visible from every alley and courtyard, a constant reminder that the divine realm was the ultimate authority. This was more than architecture, it was a profound statement that the gods owned the city, and humanity lived and labored under their watchful eyes. Similarly, in ancient Greece, the Acropolis was the fortified high city, a sacred citadel housing the grandest temples and state treasures. Its elevated position was both practical and deeply symbolic, setting the home of the gods physically and spiritually above the mundane world of the agora, the marketplace below. The journey to these centers was itself a ritual. The sacred way at Delphi was not the quickest path up the mountain, it was a carefully engineered route of spiritual ascent. Pilgrims would walk this winding path, passing by treasuries built by rival city-states, each structure a display of piety and power, building anticipation before they finally reached the Temple of Apollo to consult the famous oracle. This processional way choreographed the experience of worship, transforming a simple trip into a transformative pilgrimage. Access to the innermost sanctums of these centers was strictly controlled, creating a tangible hierarchy of holiness. While the entire community might gather in the vast courtyard at the base of a ziggurat for a public festival, only the king and high priests could ascend to the summit to perform the most critical rites. This spatial segregation reinforced the social order, making the power of the elite seem divinely ordained. To enter the most sacred chamber of an Egyptian temple, one passed through a sequence of courtyards and halls that grew progressively darker, smaller, and more restricted. The common people could enter the outer courts, but only the pharaoh, considered a god himself, could enter the windowless sanctuary housing the cult statue. This deliberate layout did not just separate people, it created a powerful gradient of sacredness, from the public and profane to the private and profoundly holy. These ceremonial centers were the glue that held the city together. During great festivals, the entire population, from the highest official to the lowest laborer, shared in a collective experience. They watched the same processions, heard the same hymns, and felt part of something far larger than themselves. This shared spiritual life, enacted in the city's core, forged a powerful social cohesion, turning a collection of individuals into a community with a common identity and a shared destiny under the gaze of the gods. The final form of a city can be a desperate cry for help. When we look past the grand monuments and examine the last chapters written in an urban layout, we see the cracks in the foundation, the stresses that ultimately shattered a society. Why would a people walk away from generations of labor, from homes and temples they built with such care? The answer is often etched into the very ground plan they left behind. Take the cramped, towering insulae of ancient Rome. These overcrowded apartment blocks, rising shakily alongside broad imperial avenues, tell a story of a population pushed to its limit. This density placed an immense strain on the city's famed aqueducts and sanitation systems, suggesting a society struggling to maintain the basic infrastructure that supported its massive size. Elsewhere, the evidence is more direct. The sudden appearance of a crude, hastily built wall thrown up around a once open city center speaks volumes. It is the archaeological equivalent of a panic attack, a clear signal of rising fear and internal conflict that the old, orderly plan could no longer contain. Similarly, a network of sophisticated canals found choked with silt and debris points to a slow-moving disaster of environmental neglect. When the maintenance of these life-giving systems failed, the city's fate was often sealed. At Cahokia, the great mound-building center in North America, the sheer scale of the central plazas and the surrounding residential zones indicates a vast, concentrated population. The very success of its design may have been its undoing, as the demand for wood for construction and fuel likely led to deforestation, while hunting and farming pressures strained the local environment to a breaking point. Yet some abandonments remain deeply puzzling. There are sites where the streets are quiet and orderly, with no signs of invasion, fire, or hasty flight. The tools are left in workshops, the pots still in homes, as if the entire population simply vanished between one day and the next. In these cases, the urban layout offers no obvious villain, no single point of catastrophic failure. This forces archaeologists to consider more insidious culprits: a prolonged drought that slowly sapped the land's vitality, a shift in trade routes that starved the economy, or a deep-seated social disillusionment that caused people to simply lose faith in the system and disperse. Each abandoned plan, whether it shows clear strain or cryptic silence, offers a sobering lesson. These are not just tales of ancient failure, they are case studies in sustainability. They ask us to look at our own sprawling modern cities and consider the same questions. Are we overstressing our water systems? Are we building in a way that fosters resilience or fragility? The silent blueprints of the past urge us to read them as cautionary maps for our own future. The blueprint of a city is a philosophy cast in stone. While the Romans were laying out their rigid military grids and the Greeks were perfecting the public agora, a completely different vision of urban order was emerging in the ancient East. Here, the goal was not to impose human will upon the landscape, but to achieve a perfect, harmonious balance with the invisible energies of the earth and cosmos. This fundamental difference in purpose created urban layouts that feel worlds apart. In the West, the ideal city was a testament to human reason and civic power. The Roman castrum, a perfect grid of streets centered on the forum, was a machine for administration and military control, replicable from Britain to North Africa. The Greek agora was the heart of public life, a bustling, open space designed for debate, commerce, and the shared exercise of citizenship. Their grandeur was outward-facing, meant to inspire awe and proclaim the glory of the city-state or empire. In the East, the city was a living body, and its plan was a form of acupuncture for the earth. In China, the art of feng shui dictated the flow of life force or qi. A city's location, orientation, and the very shapes of its structures were carefully chosen to harness positive energy and deflect negative influences. The magnificent capital of Chang'an during the Tang dynasty was a masterpiece of this philosophy. Its massive, walled grid was precisely aligned to the cardinal directions, not for military efficiency, but to mirror the cosmic order of heaven itself. The emperor's palace sat at the northern center, facing south, aligning the seat of earthly power with the celestial pole star. This was not just a city, it was a symbolic universe designed to ensure harmony between the human realm and the natural world. Similarly, in India, the ancient Vastu Shastra texts provided detailed principles for constructing everything from a single home to an entire city. The goal was to align human dwellings with the forces of the cosmos and the deities of the 8 directions. Cities like Varanasi did not grow from a geometric plan, but from an organic, spiritual imperative. Its entire existence revolves around the sacred Ganges River, with its labyrinthine alleys and ghats, those stone steps leading down to the water, forming a spiritual topography focused on ritual purification and worship. The city's layout is a map of pilgrimage, not of administrative control. So what do these contrasting blueprints tell us? The Western model often speaks of a society that saw itself as the master of its environment, creating rational, predictable spaces for civic life and imperial ambition. The Eastern model reveals a worldview that saw humanity as an integral part of a vast, living cosmos, where the city's primary role was to maintain a delicate spiritual and energetic equilibrium. One philosophy built the forum for public debate, the other built the temple complex for cosmic alignment. This is not about which was superior, but about the breathtaking diversity of human thought. It shows us that the silent stones of a lost city are not just speaking of engineering or power, they are whispering the deepest beliefs of the culture that built them. How we shape our space is ultimately a reflection of how we see our place in the universe. The stark geometry of Akhenaten rises from the Egyptian desert like a command frozen in stone. This was the city of Pharaoh Akhenaten, built in a frantic burst of activity to serve his revolutionary worship of a single sun god. Its layout is a perfect map of absolute power. Wide, straight processional streets run on a rigid grid, all leading directly to the central royal precinct with its sprawling palaces and temples. There is no ambiguity, no room for deviation. This was a city conceived entirely in the mind of a ruler and imposed upon the landscape, a physical declaration that the pharaoh's will alone dictated the order of the world. Every resident's place, from the noble's villa to the laborer's workshop, was assigned by a central authority. This top-down planning created breathtaking efficiency and monumental grandeur, but it also carried a profound vulnerability. When Akhenaten died, his religious revolution died with him. The capital was abandoned, and the desert sands slowly reclaimed the perfectly planned streets, a testament to a city that could not outlive the singular vision that created it. Now walk through the winding, cobbled lanes of a medieval European town. Here, there is no grand blueprint, only the accumulated footprints of centuries. The streets curve and narrow unpredictably, following ancient animal paths, the contours of a hill, or the meandering course of a stream. This is organic growth, a bottom-up process where the city's form was shaped not by a single decree, but by the countless daily journeys of its inhabitants. A blacksmith shop appears around a bend because that was where the road from the iron mines met the road to the market square. A public well sits at a chaotic five-way intersection because that is where the community naturally gathered. This layout is not chaotic, it is complex, evolving to meet the practical needs of the people who lived there. It possesses a deeply human character and a remarkable resilience. Unlike Akhenaten, these towns were not tied to the fate of one ruler. They could adapt, change, and endure through plagues, fires, and changes in regime, their very irregularity making them robust and endlessly adaptable. The choice between these two models reveals a fundamental truth about a society's power structure. A rigid grid often points to a strong, centralized authority capable of mobilizing vast resources and enforcing a uniform vision. It speaks of control, efficiency, and a desire for legibility from above. The winding, tangled streets of an organic city, however, suggest a more distributed, bottom-up form of power. Here, the collective needs of merchants, guilds, neighborhoods, and families shape the urban fabric over generations. The layout itself tells you whether the society was a pyramid with one person at the peak or a web of interconnected interests. So which approach is better? The planned city offers order, sanitation, and swift movement, but can feel sterile and brittle. The organic city is resilient, adaptable, and rich with character, but can become inefficient and congested. The lesson is not that one is superior, but that every city is a negotiation between the ideal and the real, between the power of a king and the persistent, everyday needs of the people. The most enduring cities often manage to hold a little of both in their weathered stones. That architectural genius was built on a foundation of revolutionary technology. To carve their visions into stone, ancient engineers had to become master innovators, developing solutions that would allow their cities to endure for millennia. Their breakthroughs are not hidden away in laboratories, but are visible in the very bones of their urban layouts. Consider the Roman mastery of concrete. This was not the simple mud and straw of earlier bricks, but a sophisticated mixture of lime, volcanic ash, and rubble that could set underwater and grow stronger over centuries. This single invention enabled the soaring arches that supported multi-story insulae, the vast vaulted ceilings of public baths, and the gravity-defying aqueducts that channeled fresh water for miles, turning the city's blueprint into a three-dimensional reality. Across the ocean, the Inca engineers of the Andes achieved a different kind of miracle with stone alone. Their ashlar masonry technique involved carving massive granite blocks with such precision that they fit together without any mortar. The joints between these stones are so tight that you cannot slip a piece of paper between them. This was not just for show. When an earthquake struck, these perfectly fitted walls would dance and then settle back into place, a brilliant seismic adaptation that allowed their cities to cling to mountain ridges for hundreds of years. Even the humble arch, a structure we take for granted, was a world-changing innovation first perfected in Mesopotamia. By distributing weight outward to its supports, the arch allowed builders to create stronger roofs and span wider spaces than ever before, leading to the development of the dome and revolutionizing the scale of public buildings. But perhaps the most telling technologies are those dedicated to the unseen necessities of urban life. The Cloaca Maxima, or Great Sewer, of Rome began as an open canal and was later vaulted over, becoming a massive underground system that drained the marshy forum and carried waste away from the city center. This was not a glamorous project, but it was a profound declaration that public health was essential to urban survival. These innovations were never just about practicality. They were the essential tools that enabled the grand visions of planners and priests. Without the arch and concrete, Rome could not have built its monumental aqueducts to support 1,000,000 people. Without their sublime stonework, the Inca could not have built a sanctuary like Machu Picchu on a cloud-shrouded ridge. The technology embedded in the stone is a testament to a deep understanding of physics, materials, and the environment. It forces us to look past the grand temples and palaces and appreciate the quiet engineering marvels that made everything else possible, a legacy of genius that still supports the ghostly outlines of these vanished worlds. The ghosts of ancient cities are not confined to ruins, they walk the very streets we tread today. Look at the relentless grid of New York City, its right-angled logic a direct echo of Mohenjo-Daro's vision from over 4,000 years ago. This is not a coincidence. The gridiron plan endures because it is a remarkably efficient way to organize space, to parcel out land, and to manage the complex flow of millions of people. It is the ultimate blueprint for a city of commerce and movement. And then there is Washington, D.C., a city designed not for commercial efficiency but for symbolic power. Its grand ceremonial axes, the National Mall stretching from the Capitol to the Lincoln Memorial, are the modern equivalent of Teotihuacan's Avenue of the Dead. These are not just streets, they are processional ways designed to inspire awe and to physically manifest a national ideology, just as ancient avenues connected the people to their gods. Our love for central parks and public plazas finds its roots in the Greek agora, that bustling heart of civic life where democracy was debated and community was forged. These spaces were never just empty land. They were the living rooms of the city, essential for social cohesion. The very idea of zoning, of separating residential areas from industrial zones, was practiced in ancient Rome and medieval Islamic cities, where tanneries and metalworkers were kept in their own distinct districts for practical and health reasons. Modern urban planners are now looking back to these ancient examples with renewed interest, seeking lessons in sustainability. They study the intricate water management of Anchor to understand how to handle monsoon flooding, or look to the passive solar design of Mesa Verde's cliff dwellings for ideas on energy-efficient heating and cooling. The challenges we face, from traffic congestion to housing density and public health, are not new problems. They are the eternal challenges of urban life. By recognizing the deep connections between the stones of yesterday and the concrete of today, we gain a powerful new perspective. We are not the first to grapple with these issues, and the solutions of the past, etched into the earth by generations long gone, can offer profound inspiration for the cities of tomorrow. Yet the most persistent stories surrounding these cities are often the least true. A thick fog of legend and Hollywood fantasy has settled over the ancient world, obscuring the real human genius behind these urban marvels. One of the most enduring myths is that the Great Pyramids of Egypt were built by the cracked whips of slave drivers. The archaeological evidence, however, paints a completely different picture. Excavations near the Giza Plateau have uncovered workers' villages, complete with bakeries, infirmaries, and graves. These were not slaves but skilled laborers, well-fed and honored for their work. They were the civil servants of their day, performing a national service for a pharaoh they believed was a god on earth. The scale of the project was immense, but it was a communal, state-sponsored endeavor, not a monument to oppression. Similarly, the legend of Atlantis, a technologically advanced civilization that sank beneath the waves, continues to capture our imagination, but no credible archaeological evidence has ever been found for such a place. The real story is far more compelling. We have actual, tangible cities like Çatalhöyük in Turkey, one of the world's first major settlements, where people lived in a dense, honeycomb-like complex without streets, moving across the rooftops of their homes. This was not a lost super-civilization, but a brilliant local adaptation to a specific time and environment. The urban layouts themselves are the ultimate myth-busters. You do not see evidence of alien intervention in the gradual, layered expansion of a city like Rome, where each new wall enclosed the growth of centuries. You see human ingenuity, trial and error, and a slow, deliberate process of cultural evolution. The perfect geometry of a city plan does not require a lost master race to explain it. It simply requires a society with a strong central authority, a shared set of beliefs, and generations of skilled craftsmen passing down their knowledge. So why do these myths persist so stubbornly? They speak to a deep human desire for mystery, for a past that is more dramatic and wondrous than the slow, patient work of archaeology can sometimes provide. It is easier to imagine a single, catastrophic event or an outside force than to accept the complex, often gradual, reasons a society succeeds or fails. But when we clear away this fog of fiction, what remains is even more astonishing: the undeniable evidence of our own ancestors' breathtaking ability to collaborate, to innovate, and to build worlds from nothing but stone, vision, and an unwavering will to create. The very tools we use to see the past are being reinvented before our eyes. Artificial intelligence is now learning to read the subtle language of the Earth, sifting through mountains of LIDAR data and satellite images to detect the faintest geometric shadows of forgotten walls and plazas. These algorithms can identify patterns of urban layout that might take a human researcher a lifetime to spot, revealing the ghostly fingerprints of a city's design philosophy hidden beneath jungle or sand. At the same time, a microscopic revolution is underway in the soil itself. Scientists are no longer just looking for artifacts, they are sequencing the ancient DNA preserved in dirt. A single soil sample from an empty field can now tell us if it once held livestock, cultivated specific crops, or was the site of a bustling market, painting a vibrant picture of daily life from genetic echoes. This environmental DNA acts like a time capsule, reconstructing the ancient ecosystem and human footprint with astonishing clarity. And from the void of space, our gaze grows ever sharper. High-resolution satellite imagery continues to scan the most remote and inaccessible corners of our planet, from the deepest reaches of the Amazon to the vast emptiness of the Sahara. These digital surveys are methodically stripping away the veil of vegetation and time, pinpointing potential sites for a new generation of ground exploration. The scale of what remains hidden is almost unimaginable. Experts estimate that thousands of lost cities, from modest towns to sprawling metropolises, still lie undiscovered, their stories waiting silently beneath our feet. As these technologies converge, our understanding of ancient urbanism will transform from a collection of individual case studies into a rich, interconnected tapestry. We will move beyond simply knowing where a city was built to understanding how its people lived, what they ate, how their economy functioned, and why they ultimately left. The next decade of discovery holds the potential to shatter long-held assumptions, revealing entire civilizations that have been erased from history. The past is not a closed book, but a manuscript where new chapters are being unearthed with every passing season, reminding us that the final word on human history has not yet been written. But who truly owns the past? This question lies at the heart of every excavation, a profound ethical dilemma that modern archaeology can no longer ignore. Unearthing a lost city is more than a scientific endeavor. It is an act that stirs deep cultural and spiritual waters. For indigenous communities around the world, these ruins are not abandoned relics, they are the sacred homes of their ancestors. The stones hold living memory, and the decision to dig can feel like a violation. This has led to a fundamental shift in how archaeology is practiced. Today, a growing movement known as community archaeology insists that local and descendant communities must be partners, not just subjects in the research. This means sharing control from the initial planning of a dig to the interpretation and display of finds. It ensures that the knowledge gained benefits the people whose heritage is being studied, fostering a collaborative spirit that respects tradition while pursuing understanding. Alongside this respectful approach lies a darker shadow, the relentless looting of ancient sites. Tomb raiders and black market traffickers tear through fragile layers of history, seeking sellable artifacts. A single looted pot might fetch a high price, but the true cost is catastrophic. When an object is ripped from its context, its story is destroyed. That pot can no longer tell us about the daily meals of a family, the trade routes of a city, or the burial practices of a culture. It becomes a beautiful but silent orphan. The fight against this illegal trade is a constant battle to protect the integrity of our shared human story. And then there is the double-edged sword of discovery itself, tourism. When a lost city is revealed to the world, visitors flock to witness its wonders. The revenue can be vital for local economies, but the footsteps of millions pose a grave threat. The very act of walking on ancient floors, of touching carved walls, gradually erases the evidence we seek to preserve. The breath of crowds alters the microclimate within sealed tombs, and the pressure of sightseers can destabilize structures that have stood for millennia. This forces a difficult question: should some places remain buried? Is there a value in leaving a site untouched, its secrets sleeping safely in the earth, protected for a future generation with more advanced, less invasive technologies? There is no simple answer. The drive to know is powerful, but it must be tempered by humility. The greatest challenge for archaeology today is to balance our thirst for knowledge with a profound duty of care to ensure that these fragile treasures and the voices they represent are not loved to death but are guarded with reverence for all the tomorrows to come. So you are handed a ghost map, a LIDA scan of a terrain you have never walked. Your task is not to dig but to think, what story do these faint geometric shadows tell? Before you lies the digital imprint of an unknown city, a puzzle of lines and shapes emerging from the earth. Your first clue is a large, circular depression near the center. Is it the foundation of a great temple, a communal meeting place, or perhaps a massive reservoir? You remember that central, circular structures often held profound symbolic meaning, representing the cosmos or a community's spiritual heart. Then your eye traces a series of perfectly straight, parallel lines cutting across the site. This is no meandering footpath. This is the mark of a planned grid, a sign of a powerful central authority that could impose its vision of order upon the landscape. It whispers of organized streets, controlled movement, and a society that valued predictability. But then you notice another feature, a single, wide avenue that seems to break from the grid, leading directly from the main gate to that central circle. This was likely a processional way, a path for rituals, parades, and the movement of gods and kings. Why was the city built on this specific hilltop? The elevation offers a commanding view of the surrounding valley, a clear defensive advantage, but look closer. Does the main gate align with the rising sun on the equinox? Was this also a sacred choice, weaving celestial cycles into the city's very entrance? The clustering of small, rectangular foundations in one district suggests a residential quarter, while the presence of several large, open plazas points to public spaces meant for markets or gatherings. What does the absence of a massive, fortified citadel tell you? Perhaps this was a society less focused on military might and more on communal life or trade. Every pattern you identify is a piece of the story. Every choice you interpret, from the width of a street to the orientation of a building, brings the silent stones closer to speech. This is the real work of the archaeologist, a detective piecing together a civilization's identity from the clues it left in the dirt. By reading this landscape yourself, you begin to see the world through their eyes, understanding not just how they built, but why. The silent stones have spoken, and their message is clear. Every grid, every sacred avenue, every winding lane is a chapter in humanity's greatest story, a narrative of ambition etched directly into the earth. Our journey across these ghostly blueprints reveals a profound truth. These are not mere relics of the past. They are enduring conversations with the cosmos, with the environment, and with the very nature of power and community. From the stunning order of Mohenjo-Daro to the celestial mirror of Teotihuacan, each city plan opens a unique window into the minds of its creators. We have traced how geography carved a city's destiny, how trade routes shaped its streets, and how faith lifted its temples toward the heavens. We have witnessed how modern science, from LIDAR scans to soil DNA, is gently peeling back the layers of time, allowing these silent narratives to finally be heard. The lessons embedded in these stones are not locked in the past. They speak directly to our present. The intricate water management of Anchor teaches us about sustainability. The resilient, organic growth of medieval towns reminds us of the strength found in community. The seismic genius of Machu Picchu shows us the power of building with our environment, not against it. As we continue to decode these ancient plans, we do more than simply honor the civilizations we have lost. We gather a timeless wisdom, a library of human experience written in stone and soil. This knowledge is a vital guide for the cities we are building today and for the urban worlds we will dream of tomorrow. So the next time you walk a familiar city street, pause for a moment. Feel the pavement beneath your feet and remember that you are treading a path laid down by ancient dreamers, by planners and priests, by families and farmers who, just like us, sought to build a world that would endure. We would love to hear which of these ancient cities captures your imagination the most. Share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more journeys into history's greatest mysteries. The secrets of these city plans are a legacy that belongs to all of us. If this journey into the urban minds of the past has ignited your own curiosity, you can walk in the footsteps of ancient planners yourself. Many archaeological sites and museums now offer stunning virtual tours, letting you explore the ruins of places like Petra or Machu Picchu from your own home. To truly dive deeper into the stories behind the stones, seek out the works of pioneering archaeologists like Brian Fagan, whose books bring ancient climates and cultures to life, or Graham Clark, who explored the deep roots of human society. Your own eyes can even join the search for lost history. Platforms like Global Explorer invite you to become a citizen scientist, scanning satellite imagery to help professionals identify potential sites hidden beneath deserts and jungles. Every pair of eyes makes a difference in protecting our fragile, shared heritage. If you enjoyed unraveling these mysteries with me, please like this video and share it with anyone who loves a great story written in stone. Subscribing to the channel ensures you will not miss our next adventure into the past. And I would love to hear from you. If you could see any ancient city rebuilt in virtual reality, which one would it be? Tell me your choice in the comments below.